Hello again. In this video, I am going to demonstrate why one would want to choose the absolute time columns option in NewGene. Now to do this, I'm going to have NewGene open. And I'm going to conduct a very simple example, but one that I think makes very clear why why one would want to choose this option. So as you can see, I've chosen the bond yields variable group, which is a country day variable group. Now that's important because if you look here, what I've decided to do for this example is pick the country code, the yield, and then the year. I am not going to choose the day or the month. And then here, I'm simply going to create a monadic or country year data set. And let's say the reason I want to do this is because I'm interested in simply in some sort of question that's relevant to country years, and I want, say, the annual average yield or something of that nature. Well, what you'll see is that NewGene is not going to produce that. Instead, it's going to produce something that could be a little confusing. We'll see why that is here in just a moment. So after choosing these three variables and setting the country code columns to 1, and then go to prepare run. Now you can see here I've already preset it to where the start year is going to be 1950, the end year is going to be 1951, so it's going to be just a single country for these 2 years, or country code data set for just these 2 years. I've already set the destination for the output data set. It's going to be called yields.csv. And what I want to do this first time through is I am not going to have this option selected. Right here is the show absolute time columns option. I am not going to have that selected. Now at this point, I'm going to click on generate output. It's going to tell me that this data set already exists. I'm fine to overwrite it. So I'm going to proceed to do so. As you can see, NewGene produced this data set fairly quickly because it's simply a country year data set for 2 years. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is open up the output data set. Now it's a bit hard to make sense of this data set because you can see here it has country code 225 here, then country code 2 there, country code 100 here. So before we say anything else, let's go ahead and sort the data using the country code column. Now doing that should make very clear right away that there's an issue. If you look, you can see this is country code 2, which for those of you who are familiar with the CAL coding, that's the United States. We have the year 1950, and then we have a yield value of 2.18. However, we see here again, we have country code 2, year 1950, 2.18. Then 1950, 2.21. Then 2.22, 2.23. In fact, we go all the way down to row 53, and we see that all of these are country code 2, 1950, and they're all these different yields. What are we to make of this? Well, the reason why NewGene has produced the data to look this way is because what it's done is it's taken what is really daily data. Now, this yield data is not for every single day of the year, it's for certain days, so there's a couple observations or a few observations every month. But what it's done is it's taken data that is really recorded on a daily basis and has produced a country year data set out of it. But the problem is it didn't specify the days corresponding to those observations. And so that's why we end up with 53 different values for country 2 in 1950. To address this issue, this is why we've added to NewGene the absolute time values variable or option. And this is an option that you don't always need to have selected, but it's useful to have it selected as just a standard procedure. So let's show why that's the case. So we're going to close this data set. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to New Gene, and we're going to keep everything here the same. We're going to keep year the same, yield, country code. We're going to keep the number of columns the same. But now we're going to go to Prepare Run. We're going to keep everything here the same, data set name the same, everything the same. But now what we're going to do is we're going to select this option, the Show Absolute Time Columns option. Now we're going to select Generate Output. Of course, again, it's going to say that the yields data set already exists. We're fine to overwrite it. You see, now it's done. And again, produced it very quickly. It's just a country year data set for 2 years. Now, if we open up the yields data set, we should immediately see that there's something different, and it's these 2 columns here. But to make this clear, I'm going to go ahead and sort the data again by country code. And now what you see is the following. Again, we have country code 2, the year 1950, and a yield value. Same thing again. Same thing again. Except this time, we have over here this column that says row starts at. What this tells us is this tells us the actual day corresponding to the observation. So you can see that this observation is corresponding to January 5th. This is corresponding to January 12th. This is corresponding to January 19th. This is corresponding to January 26th. So as it turns out, it now is very clear to us that this is weekly data. That makes a lot more sense. Now, we may not want weekly data. We may want to say, take these data and create some sort of observation for the entire year. That is another form of data processing that one could do once they have these data from New Gene. And in another video, I can demonstrate how to consolidate these data into something that might be more usable in simply a country year format. But for the purposes of this video, what I've done is show why you may find it useful to click the absolute time values option, because it will help to make clear exactly where particular values are coming from when the data come from a data set where the unit of analysis, the time unit of analysis, is less than a year. In this case, weekly, but it could also be monthly, quarterly, or even daily. Thank you.